these prominent vegans have gone anti-vegan, but why? You've seen the headlines, A-list celebrities swearing by a plant-based diet. But what happens when the spotlight fades? A growing number of once ardent vegans are rethinking their choices. Veganism's been touted as the ultimate ethical and healthy lifestyle, but lately there's been a disturbing trend. High-profile vegans, literally the very faces of this movement, are abandoning their plant-based diet. Is there more to this story than meets the eye? I want to put something in your head. What if the key to optimal health and well-being lies not in restricting meat, but in embracing our nature as carnivores? In this video, we're going to uncover the hidden costs of a vegan diet, revealing the potential health risks, the environmental impacts, and the ethical dilemmas that are often overlooked in vegan propaganda. We're going to explore the science, ethics, and surprising truths behind veganism, and discover why a growing number of people are choosing a different path. Part 1, the Great Cholesterol Myth. First up, we're going to discuss what I refer to as the Great Cholesterol Myth, what other people call the cholesterol hypothesis. Remember that scene in Game Changers where they showed clogged arteries after a fatty meal? It scared a lot of people, including my mom and me. But here's the thing, that film, like much of the nutritional advice we've been given for decades, is based on outdated and flawed science. The cholesterol hypothesis demonized saturated fats and cholesterol, related them to cardiovascular disease. But that is being seriously challenged. For example, there was a 2015 systematic review of other studies published in the Open Heart Journal, and it found no link between dietary fat and heart disease deaths. In fact, some research suggests that cholesterol, especially in older adults, can actually be protective. It seems that the real culprit behind heart disease isn't fat, but it's actually something called metabolic disorder, which is characterized by high levels of systemic inflammation and insulin resistance, which is typically caused by consuming too much sugar and refined carbohydrates in your diet. Scientists are calling for us to rewrite the rules of nutrition. A well-formulated omnivorous diet, rich in healthy fats and animal-sourced nutrients, is much healthier than a vegan diet. That is the reality here. There's a reason why you need to supplement with so many different things on a vegan diet. Now, it's really important we talk about the hidden costs of veganism, as in your health. Veganism is often promoted as a cure-all for health problems. The reality is more complex. Dr. Anthony Chaffee, a medical doctor in the US, is behind a recent Instagram page called something along the lines of why vegans have smaller brains. There's a thing called vegan brain. It's caused by a lack of dietary cholesterol as well as essential nutrients that are found only in animal products. Long-term vegan diets can lead to a range of health issues, including SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, as well as various other things. SIBO can cause bloating, gas, and even nutritional deficiencies. And it's not just SIBO that's the problem. And women on a vegan diet often have irregular periods. Sometimes they actually have difficulty conceiving. Additionally, PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome, is another concern, and it's really strongly correlated with a vegan diet as well. There's some theories related to whether it's related to high carbohydrate intake, or if it has to do with some other things like potentially ingesting anti-nutrients that you get in very high doses in a vegan diet, or perhaps the lack of essential nutrients that are found only in animal-based foods. Regardless though, there is an interesting and alarming correlation between PCOS and veganism. While this entire video is based on scientific research, there are differences of opinion in the medical community. So before you make radical changes to your diet, or you start blaming your gynecologist for your PCOS because she did not tell you that a vegan diet could possibly be correlated, understand that this research is fledgling. There are differences of opinion in the medical community as well as the scientific community. I have poured through the research, and so I'm going to give you what my opinion is of the latest scientific data. Always do your own research and make sure you talk to a doctor before making any radical dietary changes. Now, there's a hidden environmental cost to veganism. That's another hard truth for vegans to swallow. Popular vegan staples like almonds, cashew, and quinoa come with a heavy ecological footprint. Almonds, for example, require a ton of water to grow, and that puts a really heavy burden on California and other regions that have drought. Cashew processing involves terrible working conditions and exposure to toxic chemicals, and typically this is in populations where they don't have a ton of money. So there is also a human cost to veganism. And the demand for quinoa has led to monoculture farming, which displaces traditional crops and harms our natural biodiversity. But perhaps the most shocking truth about veganism is the rampant animal death it indirectly causes. Large-scale monocrop production relies heavily on pesticides and herbicides, as well as massive farming implements that kill thousands of small animals, birds, insects, and various other creatures. It's estimated that billions of animals die each year as a result result of veganism-related agriculture. So while vegans may avoid directly eating animals, their food choices actually still contribute to animal suffering and death. I go into this in detail in other videos, but according to research, we know that humans evolved on an omnivorous diet, and honestly, they extracted a lot of their nutrition from animal-based products. Our ancestors were scavengers and they were hunters, consuming some plant food and quite a lot of animal food based on the nitrogen isotope levels. So it's hard to tell what our ancestors ate entirely. For example, carbohydrates are generally not stored in the fossil record in a way that we can actually tell, but we can tell their protein sources. And they did not actually get almost any or seemingly any protein from plant sources. The protein and the fat-soluble nutrients came from animal products. It's true that we are omnivores, but according to our nitrogen isotope levels from populations all across the world, humans consumed enormous quantities of animal products. And actually, really, this energy density in animal products and certain key nutrients as well is what actually fueled the growth of our brains. And we can also tell this from our digestive system. For example, research shows that our gut acidity is close to that of a scavenger, like a vulture, for example. It's actually higher than a carnivore. And this shows that we really evolved to eat a lot of animal sources. According to evolutionary biology, it's very clear that meat eating is actually what allowed the human brain to grow. There are certain nutrients, for example, vitamin B3, that must be from animal foods and that play a direct role in human brain growth. In fact, it's been shown that in our developmental period, we actually cannot live entirely on animal foods. That's one of the reasons why breastfeeding, or at least getting some sort of milk product basically as a baby, is important. It is loaded with this vitamin B3. I talk about this in detail in another video. So how do we know that humans were meant to eat meat? For example, our gut acidity, it's actually higher than carnivores. Very interesting. So that shows that humans, early humans, were able to drive real carnivores off of prey with, fire and spears and various other things, and scavenge meat that had been killed by an actual carnivore. Another very important point here is that maintaining that gut acidity is actually very difficult for a few different reasons. One, it's very energy intensive to produce the acidity in our gut, and two, it requires a lot of protection and healing mechanisms to allow our gut to be that acidic. Moving on to gut structure, our gut structure indicates that we are also omnivorous. I go into this in detail in another video. Animal products provide essential nutrients that are critical for our optimal brain function. For example, vitamin B3, vitamin B12, preformed vitamin A, also known as retinol. These are found exclusively in animal foods, and they are crucial for cognitive function and, in the case of B12, nerve health. Creatine, which is abundant in meat and fish, also enhances our brain energy and supports memory and learning. And choline, which is found in eggs and liver and various other animal products, is vital for brain development and neurotransmitter production. These nutrients are lacking in a vegan diet, which is why vegans must supplement with certain things, including vitamin B12. Because if you are deprived of vitamin B12 for a long time, it can actually compromise your cognitive health. I want to put one thing in your mind. Throughout all of human history, there has never been a human culture that was actually vegan. From the Inuit in the Arctic to the Maasai in Africa to even the Brahmin culture in India that's traditionally vegetarian, traditional diets around the world have always included animal products. The reason is that we need essential nutrients that only come from animal products. There's a reason why vegans say veganism is not a diet, it's a belief system. And that is very alarming because it also is a belief system that compromises their health. Now, I want to touch on a really important point, and that's about the ethics and the sustainability of meat eating. The simple reality here is that factory farming is absolutely evil. They are taking these little conscious beings and they are actually putting them in really, really horrible situations. No one should advocate for factory farming. The issue here is that factory farming has become prevalent, but it is not the be-all and end-all of meat production. In fact, if our government decided to create tax incentives for regenerative agriculture, which is basically a system in which animals live the way they are meant to, and then also has a positive environmental effect. A regenerative animal agriculture situation has what they call a net carbon sequestering effect. It will actually sequester carbon more so than it produces the output of carbon. So that is something that is a really important environmental distinction that is completely missed by the vegan propaganda. Sustainable farming practices like pasture raising actually prioritize animal welfare and the environment. Animals are allowed to live natural lives, graze on open pastures, and actually contribute to the health of our ecosystem and our planet. There are also options for slaughter that are much more humane. That said, Temple Grandin pointed out that the modern slaughterhouses are vastly more humane than they were in, for example, the 1980s. species. This type of regenerative agriculture is something that sequesters carbon, improves soil health, promotes biodiversity, is healthier for the animals, and produces healthier food, and it's much more sustainable than the intensive monocrop production that is what actually allows the vegan diet to exist. Reconnecting with our food chain is a very critical part of reclaiming our health. Understand where your food comes from, appreciate the living beings that nourish us, and try to make conscious choices that align with your values. All in all, it will make for a healthier you and a healthier planet. So while veganism is often presented as the most ethical and sustainable dietary choice, the truth and the science is a lot more nuanced. The reality is a balanced omnivorous diet, especially if you focus on local, sustainably raised animal products and a variety of healthy plant foods, it's time to move beyond the simplistic narrative of vegan good, meat bad, and embrace a more holistic approach to nutrition and sustainability. The journey to optimal health isn't about rigid rules or restrictive labels. It's about understanding our bodies, our evolution, and our planet, and making informed choices that nourish us and the world around us. The science behind nutrition is constantly evolving, but the old paradigms are being challenged. It's time to move beyond the dogma that's advocated for in Game Changers and other Netflix documentaries advocating for a vegan diet, and embrace a more balanced and science-based approach. And also understand that everyone is an individual. There are certain things like histamine intolerance that make it so a wide variety of animal products may actually aggravate your system. There's also the reverse. So just see what works for yourself, experiment, and the key is to find a way of eating that supports your individual needs and promotes your individual health, but also that aligns with your values. So let's break free from the myth of vegan perfection and embrace a more holistic approach to nutrition. One that ideally honors our evolutionary heritage, respects the interconnectedness of life, and celebrates the joy of eating well. Thank you for watching. I'm Sam Butchfarov, and I'm obsessed with the science of how to get more out of life. Subscribe and share this video with your family and friends if you liked it.